Just imagine waking up tomorrow morning and discovering that every country on the earth has vanished. No borders, no religions, no currencies, no companies, no laws, no governments, no flags. Only human beings remain. The strange thing is, lions would still know how to be lions, ants would still know how to build colonies, whales would still sing the same songs beneath the ocean. But human beings, we would stand here looking at each other, wondering what comes next. Because, unlike every other creature on this planet, our world is built not only from stone and steel and rivers and mountains, it is built from stories, invisible stories. Stories about money, stories about nations, stories about gods, stories about laws, stories about human rights. Stories powerful enough to make billions of strangers cooperate with each other. And that is where today's book begins. Not with kings, not with wars, not with empires, but with a simple question. How did an ordinary ape become the ruler of an entire planet? Today, over a cup of coffee, let's talk about Sapiens, a brief history of humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. We are the only creatures on earth that lives inside stories it invented. And once you truly understand that, you can never look at money, borders, nations, or laws quite the same way again. Published in 2011, Sapiens attempts something wonderfully ambitious and slightly audacious. It tries to tell the story of our entire species. Not one civilization, not one empire, not one century, the entire journey. From small groups of hunter gatherers wandering across the African grasslands to satellites orbiting the Earth and algorithms deciding what videos we watch next. The author, Mr. Yuval Noah Harari, is a historian, but he approaches history less like a museum curator arranging dusty artifacts and more like archaeologist digging for patterns hidden beneath the thousands of years of human behavior. And what makes this book so compelling is how constantly it shifts perspective. One chapter places you beside the ancient foragers sharing food around the fire. Another suddenly zooms out so far that humanity itself begins to look like a single organism moving through time. Reading it often feels less like reading history and more like standing on a mountain watching entire civilizations pass beneath the cloud. Most history books zoom in on events. Sapiens zoom out until events become patterns. And once you see those patterns, the particular chaos of your own moment in the history start making strange kind of sense. That shift in perspective alone is worth the entire book. One of the biggest ideas in Sapiens is that our greatest strength was never our muscles. It wasn't our speed. It wasn't our cloth. Frankly, if prehistoric Earth had hosted an interspecies sporting event, humans would probably have finished somewhere near the bottom of the table. What changed everything was something far stranger. Our ability to imagine things that don't physically exist and convince others to believe in them too. A tribe of 50 chimpanzees can cooperate because every chimpanzee personally knows every other chimpanzee. Humans found a way to cooperate with thousands, then millions, then billions. Not because we all know each other, but because we believe in the same stories. Money is one such story. The paper in your wallet has no inherent value. It works only because billions of people collectively agree that it works. Cooperations are another story. A company has no physical existence, no body, no mind. Yet it can own property, sign contracts, and outlive every human being who founded it. Countries are another story. Lines drawn on the map that billions of people treat as so real, so sacred, they are willing to die for them. Civilization, in many ways, resembles the world's largest multiplayer game, with rules everyone silently accepts, and a world that functions only as long as enough players keep believing. The most powerful things in human civilization, money, nations, cooperations, human rights, are all stories. They exist because we collectively believe in them. and they can disappear the moment enough people stop believing. That realization is humbling and slightly terrifying, and somehow also equally beautiful. But Sapiens does not just celebrate human ingenuity, it asks uncomfortable questions quietly, persistently. Take agriculture, which we usually think of as humanity's great triumph. The moment civilization finally arrived, the moment humans stopped struggling and started progressing. Harari asks, what if the story was not quite that simple? What if wheat domesticated humans just as much as humans domesticated wheat? Because farming required staying in one place, working harder than hunter gatherers ever did, building larger populations that made going back impossible, creating inequality and disease and political hierarchy as unavoidable side effects. Progress, yes, but with hidden costs we rarely stop to consider. And then comes the most unsettling realization in the entire book. For more than 90% of our history, humans lived as hunter gatherers. Cities, offices, universities, stock markets, smartphones, and social media, everything we consider civilization, occupies only the final pages of an incredibly long story. Human civilization is not an ancient castle built over millennia. It's a fresh paint that has not even dried yet. And perhaps, most importantly, Harari ends with a question that history itself cannot answer. Just because humanity can do something, should it? As technologies become more powerful and our ability to alter life itself grows stronger, the question of wisdom becomes just as important as intelligence. History explains how we arrived here. It cannot decide where we go next. The wheat question haunted me most because it applies far beyond agriculture. How many things in modern life have we adopted believing they would serve us, only to slowly discover they have quietly reshaped us instead? Best examples: the smartphone, social media, constant connectivity. We domesticated the tools, or did the tools domesticate us? Food for thought. Reading Sapiens felt less like reading a book and more like being placed inside a hot air balloon and slowly lifted above the human history. At first, you see villages, then cities, then continents, then borders, then eventually you rise so high that borders disappear and humanity becomes visible as a single species telling stories to itself across hundreds of thousands of years. Some books entertain, some books educate, and then there are books that quietly rearrange the furniture in your mind. This was one of those books for me. What stayed with me most was not a particular historical event or a surprising statistics. It was the perspective. Sapiens has a way of making your daily worries feel simultaneously smaller and more meaningful. Because you suddenly remember you belong to a species that survived ice ages, predators, plagues, famines, and countless catastrophes that should have ended everything. More meaningful because every ordinary moment of your life is actually part of a story that began hundreds of thousands of years ago. You are not separate from history, you are the latest chapter of it. And the book also leaves you with something fragile and important: the realization that the shared realities we live inside, economies, nations, laws, rights, are more fragile than they appear. They exist because enough people believe in them. Civilization itself is held together by agreements written mostly in imagination. That realization is strangely humbling and strangely beautiful. You may agree with all of Mr. Harari's conclusions. You may disagree with many of them, and I disagree with some of them myself. But I think it is almost impossible to finish this book without looking at the world a little differently. And perhaps that is the greatest compliment we can give to any book. Not that it told us what to think, but it changed how we see the world around us. Should you read Sapiens? Yes, absolutely. Whether you love history or find history boring, whether you consider yourself a science person or a philosophy person or neither, Because this book is not really about the past, it's about understanding the present through the lens of everything that built it. Here is my suggestion for you: read it along with a pen nearby. You will want to underline things. You will want to pause and stare out of window. You will want to send pages to people. That is the mark of a book doing its job. And honestly, if you have ever looked at money and thought, why does this paper have this value? Or you looked at borders on a map and thought, who decided this line means everything? Or you looked at a news cycle and panic and chaos and thought, has it always been this strange? You will feel like this book was written for you. We are the only creatures on earth that lives inside stories it invented. And once you truly understand that, once you see the invisible architecture of the belief that holds civilization together, you realize something quietly extraordinary. We built all of this with nothing but shared imagination. And we can build what comes next if we are wise enough to choose it carefully. And with that, me Nikhil signing off. I will meet you again soon with another book, another quiet conversation, and another cup of coffee. Until then, take care of yourself. If you get some value from this video, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Share this video with a fellow reader and keep turning the page. I thank you very much for your time.